guys, welcome back. We are here with a viewer, Paul. Paul, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing all right, man. Thank you.
Good. And you're a viewer on both this and the pay channel.
Yeah,
oh,
when
good.
we had the pay channel.
When we had the pay channel.
Yeah.
We're bringing that back. Believe me, we're bringing that back.
Yeah.
So, Paul, tell us what we've got here. Actually, the car's not in the shop, but we will in a second. What do we got here? What are some of the symptoms? What have you done so far? Give us some background.
So, started off as a stupid attempt to run a wire through the firewall. Broke a bolt off on the intercooler. Trying to get that bolt out, I created a very large vacuum leak on the bottom of the turbo inlet that I couldn't find for a very long time. Actually, your video got me really looking for a vacuum leak, honestly, so I wasn't sure what was wrong with it.
Fuel trim video, I guess.
Yep. And, yeah, so I kept driving on it. That was my big mistake, because I kept driving on it with that vacuum leak. I just had to get back and forth to work or whatever. Finally got the turbo inlet replaced. Got the vacuum leak fixed, but I'm still getting misfire. Starts on 1 and 3, then it expands to all 4 eventually. Only misfire is under idle. If I'm above about 2,000 RPMs, then the misfire stops and it runs just fine.
Okay, good. So right offhand, any ideas based on that and based on the fuel trim videos? Any ideas what that would indicate, that you've got problems at idle, but it runs good when you're under load? What would that indicate?
So my fear right now is exhaust valves.
Exhaust. Oh, okay.
Yes.
Jump to exhaust valve.
Well, I mean, I've just done a lot of reading. I've done a lot of research on it, and
in chat rooms.
Some forums, a lot of videos. I don't really get a lot from the forums, but it kind of gives me some ideas for research. Yeah.
Shocking. Yeah, and so you actually did send me a link to one of the forums where you posted, and of course a couple people talking about known exhaust valve problems with Subarus without any evidence. They're jumping to exhaust valves, but.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a number of things that can do this, so why don't we maybe narrow down a little bit, maybe get some of your fuel trim data. Do you have any check engine light going on now? Okay, check engine light, probably misfire.
Misfire.
So let's start off with this. Let's get a listen to the car, get a look at the car. This is actually a pretty nice car. What is it again, 2005?
2009 WRX.
2009 WRX. Why don't you go ahead and hop in, start it up, and take a listen. Let's pop the hood, too, so we can better listen to the engine. I will warn you, I've never seen or worked on one of these, so don't be too nervous. Wow. All right, let's take a look here. Looks like you got a turbo on here.
Yep.
Okay. Let's go ahead and crank it up, and let's take a listen.
All right.
Oh, yeah, definitely misfiring. Wow, barely running. Now go ahead and give it some RPM. Let's see if it improves. Okay. Okay, Paul, why don't you describe what you have here? Because actually I'm asked about these an awful lot. Maybe kind of hold it a little more of an angle. There you go. We had a little glare on the screen. What is that?
So this is an app called Torque. It's on the Google Play Store. I got the professional version. I think it was like $10, something like that.
$10.
Yeah, I can add whatever displays I want. I mean, it doesn't give me the kind of information like yours does, but I can pull my engine codes and all that. So on the top here, I've got the actual value on the right, and then the graph on the left for short-term fuel trim, and then the bottom fuel trim for bank 1, sensor 1, same thing, graph, and then the actual number. Absolutely amazing. Well, start it up. Let's see if you're able to get fuel trim off a $10 tool. I'm going to be pissed. Okay, so we're good now. So here's our long-term and short-term, correct? Yep.
What would you say about that? It's kind of differing from what you said earlier, because with a long-term, we're idling right now at 6.2. What's your thoughts there?
Still less than 10.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not really thinking vacuum leak. Let's go ahead and get about 2,000 RPM.
Yeah. Come on. The downside of a cheap $10.
I have downsides on. Yeah, so it looks like we're stuck now. Good to see you have your issues too. All right, we'll come back when we get this fixed. Okay, looks like we're live now. So let's see if we can get some variability there. So we're about 8 on the long term. So we're still below 10. Which what do you think about vacuum leak? Given that.
That coupled with the fact that I've spent forever and ever searching for a vacuum leak.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, just the fact you got 10 on the long term, I'm not thinking vacuum leak now. So let's make sure that, because we had some connectivity there, let's make sure we get some variability. So let's go about 2,500 RPM. And let's hold the phone up a little bit more. Right there. Right about there. Okay, so we can see that we are live. Fuel trims are looking pretty normal. Going way negative now on your short term. Okay. So I'm not seeing anything super. We see that we are pulling that long term down now. And long term's going way rich. All right, we're kind of all over the place there. Go ahead and lit up on it. Let's let it idle. Let's see what happens there. And that's amazing how you're able to hold that right in the view without any adjustment. That's awesome. Looks like we run right back up to 8. So again, it does, you know, the long-term trim did decline with the RPM, but at only 8, a vacuum leak is not indicated with all these misfires. What other data can we pull up here? Can we pull live misfire monitor or anything? Is there any other cool stuff?
No, not a live misfire monitor.
Okay. Can we pull up any timing data or anything on there? Yeah, basically, I think this has a variable timing control, so I'm looking for something like I can't remember what they call it with Subaru, but it's basically a not a VVC. I think they call it an AVCS or something like that, or a ACVS or. We are struggling for data here. Let's try doing this. Let's pull up MAP and MAF if we can. We certainly should have at least that. Mass airflow rate will work. Okay. And then if we can pull up a MAP also. Basically, because of some of your induction work you were doing, what I'm looking for is maybe evidence of some kind of air restriction.
Okay.
No map?
No,
okay. We can't do anything right here. Okay. Can we pull up the oxygen sensor data? Or at least if it uses air fuel sensors or whatever. So that it looked like you had an O2 bank 2. There's an O2 sensor 1 equivalence ratio, which is that's going to be actually pretty good. The equivalence ratio. So it's going to be an air fuel sensor actually, and we're at 1, which we would expect. Are you familiar with this at all, with these equivalence ratios?
Yeah.
And everything? Are you? Okay, so basically 1 means it's normalized. We know that would be so because the short-term trim is around 0. So right now, we know that there is at least PCM adjustment being made here. Really would like a MAP sensor. Let's try one more time. Make sure we don't have MAP. What's the barometer say?
816.
It's in megabars. I'm not going to convert that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
11.7.
Oh, pull that. Okay. Then that should be fixed. Go ahead and snap the throttle and let it go. Okay, I want MAP. That's just basically what it's reading, barometric pressure from when you turn the key on. So let's try again and see if we got MAP. Okay, hang on. That's it. Intake manifold pressure.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all right. Okay, great. Okay, so what I want to do is let's snap the throttle to wide open just for a second and then let it go. So what I want is kind of a quick snap throttle. And what we're looking for on the snap throttle is put it all the way to the floor till it revs out. We're looking for the intake to match the barometric. Okay. Good. Excellent. Awesome. Okay. So as we saw for a brief second there, the intake matched the barometric. If there was a big discrepancy between the two, I would say that you've got good indication that you have some type of intake restriction. Considering all the work you've been doing on intake, that is ruled out right now. So we are starting to eliminate some variables. Let's go back to your screen with showing what we can pull up, and let me see if I can find anything else that might be useful. Throttle position sensor might actually be a good one.
Timing advance too, right?
Yeah, I can't say I'm too crazy about that. Now that also could be, we've seen this actually in my previous video where timing resulted from Misfire is affecting it, but I can't say I'm too crazy about that. I do like the throttle position. Let's do that one. Okay, and again, wide open throttle and drop it. Okay, pretty satisfied with that. Let's go ahead and one more time pull up your data set. Okay, so what I'm thinking also could be fuel pressure. Are there some indications that, based on your knowledge, you would maybe dismiss fuel pressure?
I tested it.
You tested it? That would be one.
That would be one.
Okay.
I was just a little bit below spec on a cold engine, but then it came right back up to what would be expected after it run for a while.
The other thing, too, is that I would expect us to go way lean when we increased throttle, and if anything, we went rich. Yeah. So not very indicative of fuel pressure. So let's keep going on. Keep going. Yeah, I don't think our fuel trims are helping us here. GPS, interesting. Keep going.
That comes from the phone, actually.
Oh, okay. Yep, let's keep going. And let's keep going. Okay, let's keep going. Let's keep going. Okay, give me a second here. Let's keep going. Let's keep going.
And that's it.
Okay, let's leave it there and snap throttle it real quick. Stop. Okay, just wanted to check your volumetric efficiency there. All right, let's go ahead and turn it off, and I think we probably need our brains more than we do a scan tool at this point.
Okay.
All right, Paul, so this is not working according to plan. We don't really have a lot of the relevant data that we want and everything. So my thoughts are, let's do the, what is it?
Knowledge board of knowledge.
The what?
Whiteboard of knowledge.
The whiteboard of knowledge, yeah. I think it's the dry erase board of knowledge.
Dry erase board.
All right, the debug. Yeah, no, don't worry about it. Dry erase board of knowledge, right? So let's list all the possible variables we could think of. And some of them we did eliminate a little bit with the scan tool. Some of them we will have to just do some manual tests because we don't have the data. So let's start listing off some stuff, man.
I thought fuel, but I've actually emptied out the tank and refilled
it. Oh, look at that.
Already. Oh, no.
Golly. Here, actually, let me try the black one. Maybe that'll show up. Okay. All right, so fuel pressure.
Yep.
Okay. Where are we at with fuel pressure? Again, you said you tested the fuel pressure.
Yeah, I don't remember what the values were. This was back in October.
Okay. And then what's another reason fuel pressure? We're thinking not so much.
Well, my fuel trim would be crazy. It would be trying to compensate for fuel pressure.
Exactly. If we had low fuel pressure, when we increase the RPM, we would expect that the engine would start going lean. Mm-hmm. And we saw actually the opposite. Yeah. Right? So not really. We're just going to cross out instead of erase them because we don't want to necessarily eliminate anything totally, but we're not really going in that direction so much. What's some other ones?
Timing.
Timing.
I've been through the timing. I was off by a tooth previously, but got that repaired. Everything's lined up.
Really? Okay. Because I'm kind of in favor of a timing problem. Okay, so the other thing is with timing, we also have, of course, cam and crank and the correlation. You know what we failed to see, though, is any timing codes. And my scan tool is really good at picking up codes. So we didn't see any timing codes. So probably not so much in that regard. Again, we're not ruling it out. We're just not going in that direction first. What else are we thinking? Misfire's ignition, for sure, right? Yeah. Ignition would be a given, and that's actually quite likely. Okay? So ignition, plugs, wires, things like that. Does this have coil unplugged, do you know? Or? Yeah. Okay, so coil. We would expect to probably see not 4 cylinders misfiring if we had a coil problem.
For
I'm
the
guessing.
most part, it's only 1 through 3, and then
Yeah.
after a while, 4 kicks in.
Oh, does it?
Yeah,
Okay,
4
okay.
takes a while to start.
Yeah, I'm having a little trouble believing ignition as far as plugs and wires, as far as the secondary, just simply because there's so many of them. Again, not ruled out yet. What else we got?
Valves.
Valves, yes. And this is, you have sort of a predisposition to valves, which basically...
Fear, actually.
A terrible feel. You're pretty convinced. Okay. This would be a compression issue. Right?
Yep.
So basically, the chat rooms were basically saying burned valves. A lot of people were pretty definitive on it. There was one guy, I did flip through it a little bit, some guy named like Nordio or something that was really all over you about, dude, it's the valves.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's got you kind of nervous, and that actually happens a lot, right? Because as you know, he's an ASC certified professional mechanic because he's in a chat room. Absolutely, yeah. So that's one that we like. What are some other variables that we can think of?
The variable valve control.
Yes, which would be timing.
Okay.
Let's put variable valve timing here. Subaru has a name for it. I believe it's like automatic control valve time. I think it's ACVT or something like that. That is a possibility, except we don't have codes for it, and we would really expect. Actually, didn't you wait a minute? Now that I'm thinking about it, didn't you mention a code, but you fixed it?
Cam and crank.
Okay, you had so that'd be a 0016 then.
Yeah.
Okay, so you had a correlation code, and then you say that it was off timing, and then you fixed it.
Yeah, and
Okay.
that one has that one pops up every once in a while, but not.
Oh,
consistent.
well, hold on a second. Okay,
Yeah.
so you do get a 0016 popping up.
Occasionally, yeah.
Okay, that. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't see a history of it. Maybe you've been clearing your check engine light or something, but. Okay, no, that's cool. So timing is back alive now, because that's kind of just from ear. I'm kind of liking this one.
Okay.
But also I agree you could have some compression problem. What else could there be with this? So let's think. What's the acronym that we use whenever we've got misfires? Do you remember the acronym?
I do not.
FASTEC.
That's right.
FASTEC.
Yeah.
Okay, which stands for.
Oh, fuel.
Yep, fuel, which we got.
Okay. Air.
Air. So we could have intake. Don't think so. You know why I really don't think we have any intake issues? It's the map sensor.
Yeah.
Did not indicate that at all. When we went wide open throttle, we were pretty much baselined with barometric, not indicative that you've got an air inflow problem.
Yeah.
So I'm actually going to eliminate that. Okay, fuel, air. S is
I do not recall.
spark.
Spark,
which would be our ignition. Okay. The T's. So I put 2 T's in mind. That's timing with the cam and crank, and then also the other timing would be the ignition timing. Okay. Exhaust. Another thing that could cause this. Exhaust, a plugged exhaust, right? So we didn't test for that. Plugged exhaust, definitely a possible explanation. And final C is...
You got me.
Oh, no, you got compression,
Compression.
which
okay.
we have on
Yeah,
here.
okay, sorry.
So the important thing is that we at least have at least one representative of our FASTEC shown up here. Right now, we're at exhaust, valves, or compression, and timing. So there's a couple ways of doing this. One of the best ways that I think is, obviously, you would agree with me, if you have a compression problem, we're in a lot of trouble. Okay, so the other way is that I actually am kind of leaning more on a timing issue here. I really don't believe we've got an ignition problem, although it's possible. But we could go in a direction of what's most likely. You can also go in alphabetical order. Any way you eliminate these, it really doesn't matter. But I will admit, if it's my car, I want to go right for the worst case scenario, the most expensive possible thing it could be, and then eliminate that. So, All right, you look a little nervous.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the valves on this, you got to pull the engine to do any sort of valve work on this thing. So
right. Basically, if we have a compression problem and we determine just from that alone, you got a major repair. If we determine that we've got leakage past a valve, you're at the very minimum removing cylinder head, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you want to do? Do you want to just go for that, or
leak down and compression test? Yeah.
You want to leak down and compression test? Okay, great. Would you agree with me that if we do a compression test and it shows to be fine, then a leak down is
probably
not necessary? How do you want to do the compression test? We can either do mechanical, we can do an ear compression test, we can use my scope. You want to go high tech, you want to stay low tech, what do you want to do?
Let's go high tech.
Go high tech?
Yeah,
let's do it. All right. That's what I like to hear. All right. Wants to go high tech. Cool. Let's get set up and then we'll come back.
All right.
Okay, Paul. So what we're going to do first is we're going to see if this car has a clear flood mode. And that is a mode that when you push the pedal all the way down to the floor, it will disable fuel delivery to the engine. I don't know if this car has it. You don't happen to know, right?
No, I don't.
No? Okay. So why don't you go ahead and push the pedal all the way down to the floor and go ahead and start. If the car starts, immediately lit up on the pedal. Okay, go ahead and hit it. Awesome. Okay, so we have clear flood mode. So you know what? While we're doing that, let's just try the low tech for those that don't have scopes.
Okay.
And we're going to take a listen here. So I'm going to get the microphone next to the car. And do you know what we're listening for here, Paul?
Hissing?
No. Actually, what we're listening for is a inconsistency with the cranking sound.
Okay.
So we're kind of listening for like a, that kind of thing. Okay, so let's go ahead and hit it. Yeah, just floor of the pedal, and then just keep cranking. Stop. What do you think?
Sounded good to me.
It sounded good to me too. Okay. All right, that is not a definitive test though, and we do want to 100% eliminate your concern with the compression. So what we're going to do is let's go high tech and let's do the compression test using the scope.
Okay.
Okay, great. Okay, Paul, any idea what we're doing here?
Nah.
None. Okay. Nope, that's all right. No problem here. So let me zoom out here and we'll show you what we got set up here. So what we're going to do is what's called a relative compression test. And I'm going to go over to the dry erase board of knowledge here. Oh, we can't. We need to retain our stuff here. So just come on over here. It'll be kind of boring if we just look at a blank screen here. Okay. So what we're going to do, Paul, is as you noticed from the ear test, we heard that. And what that is that sound is when the starter motor is compressing on the compression stroke, the starter motor strains a little bit. You've turned over an engine by hand before, and when you crank the engine by hand, as you're on the compression stroke, it gets real hard to turn. So there's a phenomenon where when an electric motor meets that resistance, of course, the motor slows down a little bit as a result. And the slower a motor goes, the more amperage that will go through it. So what we're going to do is we're going to measure the amperage on the starter while it's cranking, and we're going to have ebbs and peaks. The peaks are going to be at the compression stroke, and then the ebbs would be if it's cranking when there is exhaust valve open or intake valve open. But those compression peaks are what we're interested in, and if the engine is in good health, every one of those compression peaks should be identical for every cylinder, right?
All right.
If we have a situation where one cylinder has a compression leakage, then of course the starter motor is going to have less strain passing through that cylinder, right?
Yep.
Therefore, the motor goes a little bit faster than it does the other cylinders, less amperage, we would see the peak lower.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, so I'll tell you what, I'm going to have you take a look at it, and you guys too, of course. And the way we're going to do this is I've got an amp clamp, so this detects amperage, and it is around the positive cable for the starter motor. And then we're going to zoom in here. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and crank it so you can actually see the live data. Oh, thank you. Keys. Do you see the peaks?
I do.
Okay. So let's stop this and then let's take a little look here at what we got. So now I can go back, and this is perfect, Paul.
Okay,
this is absolutely perfect. So we don't know which cylinder each of these are. We don't know if this is 1, 2, 3, and 4, whatever. There is a thing where sometimes what I'll do is I'll put an ignition signal, and we'll get a spike on an ignition signal on the number 1 or the number 2, whatever I put the ignition signal on. And then if we know the firing order, we would be able to know it's like 1, 3, 4, 2. I don't know what the order is. But what we're looking at is every one of these peaks is a cylinder at compression. We can see as we crank through, this is the start of the cranking. As we go through, they're all 100% identical.
Okay.
Right. Now, one of the problems with this test is, do we know how many PSI we're seeing here?
I don't think we could.
No, we only see the amperage. So all we know is all of your cylinders are dead exactly equal, but they also could be all very low compression.
Okay.
That's possible. That's possible. But it is so extremely unlikely
Yeah.
that I am actually going to rule it out. So I'm just going to tell you right now, Paul, you can alleviate your fears, you can assuage or mollify your fears. You do not have a compression problem or burned valves or anything like that.
Okay.
Awesome?
Yeah.
All right.
Really awesome.
There you go. So if nothing else, we get out of here with that news. So let's get back to the dry race board of knowledge, see what we can eliminate.
All right.
We are eliminating your worst cause. How's that?
That's great.
All right. And so what do you think of the test there, by the way?
I think it's great. I mean, I was going to do the manual compression check with pulling the spark plugs and
Yeah.
the meter and all that, having somebody turn over, and like you did what probably would have taken me an hour and a half in about 30 seconds.
Oh, well, awesome.
That's
Yeah,
great.
it's the way to do it. And actually, if you could do it in an hour and a half, I'd be impressed, because this is that 180-degree engine where the spark plugs are right along the sidewall. So even threading in your compression tester is that's a little bit of a job. So
Yeah.
this is the way to do it. So we're down now to plugged exhaust and timing.
Yeah.
Okay, as our more likely ones. We haven't ruled everything out, but as our more likely ones.
Okay.
Exhaust, there's a couple ways we could do this. The way that I like to do it is to see if we can find an easily accessible oxygen sensor, or air fuel sensor, I think in your case.
Okay.
And we'd want to find one ahead of the catalytic converter.
Okay.
4-cylinder engine, so you should only have one, I think.
Yeah.
Let's, if you want to do that, or the timing, that would be a little more difficult, actually. Yeah. So, and you've dealt with this before. So,
I have.
plugged exhaust. We haven't done any tests for that. Maybe we should take a look and see if we can rule that out.
Okay.
You okay with that?
Sounds great.
All right, let's do it. Okay, so what Paul's doing is he's removing the air fuel sensor that is ahead of the catalytic converter. Obviously, if we've got exhaust restriction, most likely it's going to be the catalytic converter. Also very reasonable, Paul, wouldn't you agree that if you're running too long with all these misfires, you're going to melt your cat?
Yeah, that's entirely possible and probable.
Yeah, so the other thing, too, that Paul and I were just thinking, we totally forgot about that O2 sensor code, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, and that obviously a bad O2 sensor clearly could cause a problem. One of the things that I'm not totally convinced we got O2 sensor code is that the fuel trim was reactive. And but then again, we had a slow response code. I don't know, I really don't think that's going to be causing these issues that we're seeing, but we may look at that next. But we'll let Paul, it's kind of nice having you here, Paul. I don't have to get dirty or anything.
Hey, man, I don't mind at all.
Awesome, awesome. Well, we'll let Paul get that O2 sensor out, and then we're going to put in a gauge to measure the back pressure on the exhaust and see if we can rule out another variable. Okay, Paul, so you seen this before?
I have.
Okay,
Yes.
in the video?
I saw this in the video.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You want to tell the folks what we're going to do here?
So what we did was we pulled the O2 sensor out. We're going to plug this in and then see if we have any back pressure. I think it's anything over 1 PSI is going to be a problem.
That's right. And what will we expect for exhaust back pressure on a healthy exhaust?
0.
Pretty much 0.
Yeah.
Pretty much 0. Anything over 1 I'm worried about. So let's test the gauge real quick here. All right. We're good to go. Go ahead and
Okay.
plug that in, and we'll get a reading.
All right, we're in nice and tight here.
Okay, great. That's what she said. It's not happy, is it? Okay. Hang on. Okay, so the gauge is jumping around all over the place, but it doesn't go past 1. This is clearly the result of your misfiring going on, but this is definitely not indicative of a exhaust valve or an exhaust plug. Go ahead and give it some RPM. Yeah, right about there. So no back pressure. We're good. You can go ahead and kill it. So we've ruled out back pressure now. Let's go ahead and get that O2 sensor back in. And I think probably a good thing to do is see if we can get some evidence of some fault with the O2 sensor behavior, and then we'll kind of take it from there. I will say I am impressed by the fact that while we're removing this air fuel sensor, you didn't even once mention the idea, let's just go ahead and replace it.
That's not how you do things, man.
No.
That's what I've learned from you.
Good, good. All right, my friend, what can we rule out here?
Exhaust.
Exhaust. You do not have a plugged exhaust that is causing this problem. How are you doing on power with the car, by the way? Is it really lacking power, or does it seem... Okay.
Only when it's idle, like if I'm got the clutch in, I'm coming into a turn, it'll actually stall sometimes just when they added low to the power steering pump. But when I'm driving, man, it's just fine.
Okay. Kind of liking that. Okay. So we did make a mistake, and that is we forgot you did have an O2 sensor code. So I think probably the easiest thing to do, since the timing gets a little complicated, and we'll probably do that on a different video. I've also got a business trip coming up, so unfortunately we're going to have to wait for a little bit till the next time we work it out. It'll also give me some time to research, since I'm not familiar with this engine. So let's knock this out, this O2 sensor code. If I remember correctly, it was a slow response or something. So the problem with doing this is it's not going to be very definitive because you got an air fuel sensor. With an O2 sensor on a slow response, what I want to do is that scope, which you've come to see is really handy to have.
Yeah.
I would hook up the scope to the O2 sensor. We would induce some lean or rich variables, get the O2 sensor to respond, look at the immediate responsiveness. The problem is that when we use a scan tool to look at responsiveness, it's very difficult because the processing of the scan tool has to be taken into account, and that's a variable that you can't really compensate for. Yeah. So in other words, if you're seeing a slow response, is it just because the scan tool has a low refresh rate? Mm-hmm. So we're going to play with it just to see if we can get some indication. I really don't think this is your problem, but we want to rule it out if we can so that I have less variables to deal with. So let's do this. So my other scan tool, Auto Tap. Let me see if this thing's done refreshing. It's still not good. All right, I can't do Auto Tap. So let's see. Your scan tool probably is going to have a better refresh rate than Auto Ingenuity is, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Auto Ingenuity, I find very often the refresh rate is not as quick. And the other thing, too, guys, is that my main computer that I use for Auto Tap, which has amazing refresh rates, unfortunately is updating right now, and it's got like a long time to go. Really shouldn't have done that before you got here. But so we're going to use your tool, see if we can measure the actual air fuel sensor output, and then we'll induce some variables and just see if it's responding appropriately.
All right.
That's the idea. All right. Can we take a look at the tool that you have there again, just so, because I'm actually pretty impressed with it. I'm not going to lie.
Well, the tool was separate from the app. The app recommended, a bunch of different tools you can buy on Amazon that'll work with it.
Okay. Okay, OBD scan, V-Gate, OBD scan. All right, well, I'm pretty impressed, man. Pretty handy and right from your phone. Do you know if it works with anything other than your Samsung here? Does it work with iPhones or?
I don't know about iPhones. I imagine there's at least an app, if not Torque, an app that'll work with iPhones. Definitely any Android phone, not necessarily just a Samsung.
Okay. Well, I like it. Let's go ahead and get that set up, and let's get some data. So what we've got here, the top one is our air fuel ratio commanded, air fuel ratio actual. We've got our equivalents, and we've got our voltage. So this is going to be the one that's basically like an oxygen sensor, only in reverse. We're really kind of interested in this one. And are you familiar with the voltage, by the way, on an air fuel sensor? You notice that it's not between 0.1 and 9 like an oxygen sensor.
No.
So are you familiar with this?
Somewhat.
Okay.
Somewhat.
What do you know about it? A little bit?
Yeah, why don't you explain it?
Okay, yeah, no problem, man. So for those of you that haven't seen the air fuel sensor video, basically what this is it's an imaginary value. So what it's actually doing is it's measuring in very, very, very tiny amperage, and the voltage, it's not actually 2 volts. This is just an arbitrary number. It's different on different vehicles, and it's because people are generally familiar with an oxygen sensor. But this one's going to be in reverse of an oxygen sensor. So in other words, with an O2 sensor, we would say a 0.9 would be running full rich. So anything that's running, I'm not sure what the baseline is here. It's going to be close to 2 because our equivalency is 1. So if it's running, say, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, something like that, then we're getting leaner and leaner and leaner. And if it's dropping below 2, then of course we're getting richer and richer and richer. The opposite of an O2 sensor that's below 0.5, and it's at 0.3, 0.2, we would say it's running really lean. At 0.1, we say it's flat out lean. So what we want to do is induce some variables and see if we get appropriate response here. So one of the best things, as you know, I like to do is use propane.
Yep.
So let me get a can of propane here, and we're going to open this air box up a little bit, and I'm going to dump in some propane. So let's take a look and see what this does to our voltage there. See how it drops? And that's immediate.
Yep.
So your refresh rate is very quick. We're taking out the propane and we see how quickly it comes back up. Try it again. Immediate drop. As soon as I'm putting this propane in, we're seeing that drop. So the refresh rate I'm not really too worried about accounting for. We can see that it really doesn't have that much effect on the engine idle so much. Okay, the other thing we want to do is we're going to want to do the opposite. We're going to want to make this thing go lean, which is going to increase the voltage, again, backwards from a O2 sensor. So I want to find a line. You think that'll do it?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. I like it. Yep, sure does. And look at that. Immediate jump. I'm going to say that your air fuel sensor is doing its job.
Okay.
Notice it goes really lean as soon as we tie it back in. Again, that's because of that fuel trim correction. Right now our fuel trim's going way positive. So it's adding too much fuel. As soon as I connect the line, we've got too much fuel added, meaning we're going rich. So it's going to start subtracting. Okay, I really do not believe that your misfire problem is the result of a faulty air fuel sensor.
Okay.
All right, let's rule it out. Okay, Paul, I am convinced that your air fuel sensor is not responsible for this issue. So ruled that out pretty quick. Right now, there are a couple variables here. The timing is really where I'm kind of leaning. We also haven't totally ruled out ignition, although this is so unlikely that I'm really not willing to consider it too much. What I'm worried about is that definitely fuel pressure is still. So can you describe a little bit and tell everybody what you did as far as measuring the fuel pressure? Because one of the things that I'm a little concerned about is in looking at the system here, there is no Schrader valve to measure. Okay, and I'm just going to guess that you probably don't have a professional fuel pressure kit where you were able to take running pressure. So tell me what you did here, because I'm a little concerned.
Disconnected the fuel line, hooked it up to a compressor checker that I got from O'Reilly, a rental.
Okay.
You know. But yeah, just disconnected the fuel line, plugged it in, turned it over a few times just to look and see, whether or not it was within spec with what it was calling for.
Okay. And you didn't do any fuel pressure tests with the engine running?
No, I didn't have the tools to do
Okay, so
Yeah.
What are you thinking about our eliminating fuel pressure because you tested it now?
Not so much.
Not so much, yeah.
I thought I tested it, but
Yeah, I think given the simplicity of measuring fuel pressure versus the complexity of doing the timing, which the timing, quite honestly, I believe, because I don't want to take the whole car apart with you, and I'm sure you don't either.
Yeah.
And we're going to do the timing using the scope, and we're going to look at the overlap of cam crank signals with the ignition signal, and it's going to be pretty complicated and high tech. And to be honest with you, I'm going to probably not have time to do that right now because I'm not sure how if we're going to access from the PCM. Sure. Fuel pressure, though, we can do pretty easy, and I do have a number of connectors that we should be able to get running fuel pressure and just rule out if we've got an issue here. I really don't think so, again, also because of the fuel trim behavior and stuff, but we really need to get this off this board. Okay. So let's do fuel pressure testing.
All right.
Are you good for that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, got time?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Okay, let's prime it a couple times. Okay, and we've still got a lot of air in the system from when we emptied it out, so did about 2 or 3 times. Okay, so we are reading a pressure of about 41 right now, about 42, and just hold for a minute. What I'm doing is a decay test, see if we lose any pressure. And we are most definitely not. Give me a second here. I want to make sure we're not leaking anywhere on the connector. Okay, I think we're good. Let's start up. See if we can keep it running. Yeah. Okay, yeah, this thing's missing terrible. Okay, we're still at about 41, 43. Give it some gas. Again. All right, lit up. That's running terrible. Keep going. Okay, we're definitely within spec. Go ahead and give it some more gas. Give it about 2,000 RPM. Hold steady at about 1,500. Okay, let's go ahead and turn it off. Okay, Paul, so what was our spec on pressure?
We wanted to be around 40, 41.
Yeah, exactly. So it depends on the altitude. So typically the altitude up here in Denver, we're going to be looking a little bit more at the higher range. So the fuel pressure standard is 33 to 38. We're expecting up to 10 higher than that because of the higher elevation we're at in Denver here. So reading a 41, I'm totally fine. You had slight increase with the pressure when you increased RPM. We had no decay indicating injector leaks, anything like that. So what do you think about our fuel pressure?
I think it's good.
100%.
Yeah.
This is not a fuel pressure problem. Okay, so we are down to either ignition problem or timing. I think you're going to agree with me that it is far more likely that we've got a timing problem at this point.
Okay.
Okay, so I know that you said you checked the timing mechanically and that you even did find that there was an issue where the timing was off. What are some variables that you think could explain that maybe the recurrence of a timing problem? Where's my pen at?
The valve control.
Yes, valve control for sure could be an issue, yeah. And these use an oil pressure driven valve control. So that's a possibility. Also possible intermittent cam crank or electrical problems or things like that. Another thing too is when you found that your timing was jumped, what exactly did you do to fix this?
Pulled the timing belt off, got it all lined up right, and put it back on.
Okay.
Just took my sweet time doing it.
Oh, I'm sure it was a job. I'm sure it was a job.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. Now, let me ask here, try not to put you on the spot here or anything, but we do want to legitimately rule out variables. Did it concern you that obviously your timing was off to begin with and that there was probably some cause for that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So did you do anything to alleviate that? Variables for that could be any ideas?
I was actually just thinking the misfire may have caused it to jump.
Okay.
But it's a pretty brand new timing belt, so that was kind of a mystery to me as well as how did it get off.
What about tensioner?
It's got the tensioner replaced less than 20K ago. In fact, it's got a brand new one on there now because when I tried to fix the timing, I compressed it too quick and blew it up and had to buy another one.
Oh, okay. All right.
Oh man, the noise it made, that tensioner, man, that was scary.
It's been like gunshot, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought I hit
Huh.
Yeah, I thought I did some major damage in there, but
oh wow,
it's just a tensioner.
Okay, so it's got a new tensioner, so that makes it a little bit less likely that, obviously you would see my point that I was going in the direction that if you didn't replace the tensioner, then we've got this problem happening again. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to look and see if we can do some quick, easier method of doing the time. I wanted to just validate again before you leave that we're on the right track with the timing, and I think we've got some evidence here. Now, again, I'm not familiar with the Subaru readings, but one of the things is we've got our ignition timing jumping all over the place. Now, again, that can also be the result of the fact that this engine is running totally like crap. But what I really don't like is the VVT advance on the left and right showing such a discrepancy. And I believe, don't quote me on this, and I'm hoping you guys out there may be able to help if you know what you're doing here. I believe that at idle these are supposed to be 0. I'm not totally certain about that. Certainly I would expect within 10, but I really don't like this. So I believe that that is going to lie in to be the issue, but unfortunately, as you know, I got my flight to catch. So we will follow up on this, but when we follow up, we're definitely going to be changing a timing problem. Agreed?
Yep. I think so.
So we're going to make a part 2, guys. We're going to have Paul come back. You're okay to come back, right?
Absolutely.
All right, good. We'll have Paul come back, and then we're going to determine whether or not we've got a timing problem. And if we determine the timing's working and everything, then we're just down to ignition. And or maybe we missed something earlier. So that's where we're at now. So we'll go ahead, we'll post this up as soon as we can for you guys, because also, unlike your chat room, okay, these guys out here, in the chat room?
Well, in the forums.
In the forums? Were there?
Yeah, there were some legitimate.
Oh, well, good. Well, then those guys will be on my channel.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so I'm going to post a video on here.
So what I'm hoping for is that you guys also will look at some variables we overlooked. Of course, it's a little bit challenging doing the video and coming up with all the variables, but I guarantee you that when you watch the video, you're going to look at the comments and it's going to blow away that forum as far as the quality of the return you get. So we're looking forward to your ideas, and we'll come back and we'll finish this thing up.
All right, cool.
All right, my friend.
Thank you very much.
We'll see you in a little bit.
Yep.
Bye.